Journalism in 2021. Let's have some fun here with how CBS News covered missile strikes against Iranian forces under President Joe Biden and how they covered similar missile strikes against Iranian forces a year ago under Donald Trump.
More breaking news tonight. The Department of Defense announced that earlier this evening, President Biden ordered airstrikes on Iran-backed militia facilities along the Iraq-Syria border. The president did not respond to questions about the strikes when returning to the White House this evening. The Pentagon says the action was defensive and targeted locations being used to operate drones against American facilities and personnel in Iraq. Lawmakers from both parties in Washington.
Okay, so what's interesting about this report? She goes right into another news segment without analyzing President Biden's decision, without calling on any military experts about Joe Biden's state of mind in ordering this strike. She read the news straight with no editorializing, no commentary. She didn't change her inflection to indicate sarcasm. She didn't make any exaggerated facial gestures to indicate her personal disapproval of these strikes by President Joe Biden against the forces of Iran. That's interesting. You'd almost think this was an act of journalism, and I'm not picking on CBS Evening News. They are simply stupid enough to retain video clips of what they did to Donald Trump in their efforts to unseat him as president a year ago. Let's see how CBS News covered a similar strike.
CBS News Special Report. I'm Margaret Brennan in Washington. It appears the U.S. military has launched a missile strike in Iraq. The strikes appear to be retaliation for an attack against the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad on Tuesday. Tonight, Iraqi state TV is reporting that among the people killed is Qassem Soleimani, a revered Iranian general and one of that country's most powerful military leaders. He's considered by the U.S. to be a terrorist. David Martin is live at the Pentagon tonight. David, if this is true, it would be a significant escalation with Iran, and it could be interpreted as going to war.
I think so. You accurately described him.
Okay, so let's go to the most obvious glaring deficiency of the reporting of CBS News last year in January. At no point does CBS News simply state the fact that if this Iranian general is so important, why was he illegally in Iraq plotting to kill more fellow Muslims, plotting to kill Iraqis, and specifically plotting to kill Americans deployed in Iraq? If he's so important, why did he travel illegally and secretly to another country in order to carry out these activities? We get no moral judgment from CBS, but we get plenty of editorializing and hints that Donald Trump may have done something very, very wrong, even accidentally causing a war between the United States and Iran. Now, CBS News already has enough information on this breaking story to know that if Soleimani is this revered figure who's the number 2 guy in Iran, what business did he have in Iraq, sneaking into that country illegally to conduct terrorist attacks against the people there? They already have enough information to decide this.
Is considered by the U.S. to be a terrorist. David Martin
is considered by the U.S. to be a terrorist. Go back to the reporting here, 2021. Did you hear any editorializing from CBS News about whether the people that Joe Biden blew up on his ordered strikes against Iranian militia groups in Syria, was there any editorializing from CBS News that Biden considered these people to be terrorists? No. No editorializing at all.
If this is true, it would be a significant escalation with Iran, and it could be interpreted as going to war.
Okay, wow. I wish we could ask this distinguished news anchor at CBS News, who was saying that Trump was leading us to war in January 2nd, 2020, as you see there. And there is no such assumptions, editorials, castigations of President Biden, criticisms of President Biden, of any nature by CBS News.
In places like Iraq, Syria, Lebanon. He has been responsible.
Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. So we actually have a precise situation that is identical, where this man was doing terrorist strikes against Americans and American allies in Syria, identical to Biden's ordered strikes into Syria. Where is the editorial here for Biden?
More breaking news tonight. The Department of Defense announced that earlier this evening, President Biden
Look at her face,
ordered airstrikes on Iran
listen to her tone,
facilities along the
and listen to her
Iraq-Syria
words.
border. The president did not
Her job
respond
is not to
questions about
defeat
the
Joe
strikes
Biden
when
politically.
returning to the White House this evening.
Her job is
The
not to
Pentagon
harm Joe
says the
Biden
action
politically.
was defensive,
Her job
targeted
is not to
locations
help
being used
the
to
opposition
operate
party
drones
defeat
against
Joe
American
Biden in the next
facilities and
election.
personnel in Iraq.
She has no agenda at all.
Lawmakers from both parties in Washington.
Then I think Iran will take this as an act of war.
So he is delving back into her premise because the news media is actively hoping, January 2nd, 2020, they are actively rooting for Iran to counterattack. The news media, CBS News is just an example here, but every news outlet at this time almost seemed like they were cheerleading for Iran to retaliate so that they could blame Donald Trump. There was no such attitude with Joe Biden's strike. Same strike, same decision making, we hope, but all of the editorial bias is gone. It's just, here's what happened, as if reporting on the weather. And they just go on. But the focus was entirely different in 2020. Why? This is not journalism, but it is the state of journalism in 2021.
Well, this is so significant if true, David, but we have only had silence from U.S. officials up to this point for Baghdad to announce this on their state TV.
So, when this lady did not obtain any response from Joe Biden, it's just reported as perfectly normal. When this CBS News anchor doesn't get any answers from the U.S. military, she acts personally offended. Why is her attitude so different from this reporter's attitude in 2021?
The Pentagon says the action was defensive and targeted locations being used to operate drones against American facilities.
Wow. So in this case, you have plenty of opportunity to be skeptical, to call on experts, to say, hey, is the Pentagon really telling us the truth? Is this really what happened? There's no skepticism here. There's no pushback on any premise from the Biden White House. There's no need to have any curiosity at all about whether these strikes were necessary. Will our soldiers be asked to go to a new war waged by President Joe Biden? These are basic, neutral questions that any self-respecting journalist should be asking. Why does Biden get a pass for basic journalism?
It is a significant indication, and for our viewers to understand, the U.S. and
See, she has to go into all this deep editorializing. Our viewers have to understand
this targeted strike, if this is true, is this something that President Trump himself would have been directly involved in?
why is that so important to her. Their angle, their template, was that Trump would personally butt in and make improper decisions that no previous president had ever done. Her premise is, why is Trump leading us to war? He's such a madman.
And personnel in Iraq.
Well, that's the end of that story. No need for any more commentary from me. My only job is to prop up Joe Biden. CBS News is completely clueless. They don't see any bias in their reporting at all. Just days before, CBS News anchor Norah O'Donnell brags, CBS is a fact-based, fair, and neutral network. You see no difference in the reporting of this person and the reporting of this person for the same news story. Thank you.